All right. Hey everyone. So it's Nico DeCapper here back again. And this time we're going to be talking a little bit more about a image processing program called FIJI, which just stands for FIJI is just ImageJ. As you can see, I already pulled it up here, and this little window pops up. But when you first click on your desktop app, what happens is it usually takes a few seconds to open up this window, but you know it's running because there's this giant logo right in the middle of your screen that looks kind of like this right up here. So just real quick, I'm going to show you guys where you can download this. So if you go just into, say, Chrome and type in FIJI download, it's going to be just the first link. And there's two options. So you can just click up here because this is the one you're going to want to download. But if you go further down the screen, there's a Java 8 version, which is the one that I just showed you, and then there's the Java 6 version. So Java 8 is the more recent version, and it's the one that you definitely want to use and download. But there are some really, really old plugins that are kind of archaic that require the Java 6. So you don't really need to download the Java 6 unless you're trying to use that specific plugin. So the first thing I'm going to show you guys how to do is how to open up a file. For this tutorial, it's going to be just an OIF file, which is the type of file that we get from a confocal image. And I'm just going to show you more of the very general things you can do with FIJI. And then Jen and I are going to do different tutorials for more advanced functions of the program. So there's two ways you can open up a file. Just like any other type of program, you can just do File and Open. Or what I usually end up doing is I always have my files in the right place, and then you can just kind of click and then drag and drop it. The really important thing about these OIF files is that it comes with a folder that's filled with all of the metadata, that is filled with all of like the parameters and all the different types of settings to use when you initially took this photo. And so it's really, really important that you have this folder with your file, and it's named exactly the same type of thing, except for the, this is the .oif.files, and the one that we actually drop and drag is just the .oif. But if you don't have the folder along with it, then then FIJI won't open it. So we'll go ahead and I'll just drag it and drop it, and then I'll hide this. And what you see is what immediately pops up is the bioformats import options. And this is just how you want to open up your stack or image. So you have, like the stack viewing options. We always use hyperstack, but there's different types. Like you can only get, you can like just pull up the metadata, which is just pretty much that file. As well as like you have different options for metadata viewing, memory management. Like you can use a virtual stack if the file is really, really big. Dataset organization, color option, and split into separate windows like channels. But the nice thing about this is that you can just hover over each one. It tells you exactly what it does. But I usually never touch anything, and I just ensure that the viewing stack is on hyperstack. And so once you're done, you can just click OK. And so the console will pop up here, as well as the actual image. And you can see here that this is a stack that was taken by myself of adepocites with nuclear stain. This nuclear stain is very bad. And then lipid droplets and F-actin. But you can see down here that there's two different bars. There's the C, which stands for channel. Channel is pretty much like what laser you were using or what stain you were using. And so each stain is going to have a different channel unless you took two stains at the same time. or you image two stains at the same time on the confocal, which we usually don't do because it kind of reduces the resolution and brings up a little bit more noise. But then below this, you see the Z. This is just kind of like the Z placement. So you can look at the top left up here, and it says like C2 out of 3. So this is the second channel. If you move it, it's the first channel. And then I'm on the Z of the 1 out of 11. And as I move it to the right, I'm going up the stack and then, you know, going back down to where I initially put it. And so it's really important to kind of say, you know, how far above the glass you are, just so you can kind of remind yourself, as well as the step sizes. So you see here, it was 50 microns from the glass and then 3 micron steps, and then in the middle of the gel. So I know that each time I move this over here, it's going to be, or each time I move the Z slice, it's going to be 3 microns above. So, you know, this is at 50 microns, move it over 1, 53, 56, and you kind of get the idea. And so obviously you don't want each channel to be the same color, or else when you say put it all together, I'll just show it real quick, you can't really distinguish what stain is what stain. So the way to kind of get around this is by changing the color of the channel. And so there's 2 ways you can do it. You can use just like the keyboard function, which is just Control-Shift-Z, and it pulls up the color. And then you can pick composite, which brings all the channels together. Color, which is just, you know, keeps it at this individual channel, and then you just have to keep sliding the bar. And then there's also the grayscale, which is pretty self-explanatory. It just makes everything pixel intensity from like the lowest will be, you know, black, and then the highest is going to be white. But if you don't remember the keyboard shortcut, you can always go into Image, Color, Channel Tool, and then it also just even reminds you what the keyboard shortcut is. So for our purposes, we always usually make the lipid droplets green, the actin I'll just make, you know, red, and the really bad nuclear staining for this image, I'll just make it blue. Yeah, so this is how you kind of change your color, and then you can kind of see that when you change it back to the composite, you have this very, you bring all the channels together. But for right now, I'll just keep it at each color. And so say you want to take, you want to delete some of your slices, or you only want, say, I don't know, 20 microns of the slice you took. You can go to whatever slice you want and go to Image, delete slice, and it's going to delete it. It's going to ask you, you know, is this the current, do you want to delete the current slice or the channel? And so for this one, let's just say slice. And now I have only 10 Z's, Z slices, or planes instead of 11. But I usually never use this, because when we end up doing a Z stack, you can kind of control which, you know, Z planes you want to start and stop at, which I'll show you in a second. But before that, I want to show you how to change the brightness or contrast of a specific channel. So just a fair warning, if you're doing any type of image intensity quantification, you cannot use the brightness and contrast function, because then that just biases your data, and it's just blatantly lying. As well as you don't really want to use this function too much, even for when you're just kind of showing the pictures, because again, it kind of skews what the image is actually trying to portray. But I just want to show you the function anyways. So the shortcut is, the keyboard shortcut is Control-Shift-C, as well as you can just go to Image, Adjust, brightness and contrast and pulls it up. And you can see here that it's red, but if I move to a different channel, say this, like it's green, so it changes the green, and then again blue. But we'll do red because it seems like it's very, there's a lot of brightness. So there's the minimum threshold and the maximum threshold. So, if you bring it up, it's going to get rid of a lot of the signal. If you bring the maximum threshold down, it's going to brighten it up. And then brighten just uses the minimum maximum thresholds together. So brightness, it's going to just kind of change the maximum, but the contrast, it's going to change both. So it tries to get the background and the highest intensity pixels to, I guess, be more distinguishable from one another. And so whenever you're kind of happy with it, you can press apply. I personally never do this because once you do it, you can't reset it. I know it says that there's this reset button here, but let me just show you. So I'll reduce the brightness a little bit. I'll press apply, and that changes it. Press reset, it does not go back to normal. And so this is kind of like some of a lot of the things that happen in ImageJ. So what I always try and do is make like a duplicate of the image that you're trying to manipulate, because sometimes you can't go back and you don't want to have to start all over again. So you can just easily do this by doing the keyboard function Control-Shift-D, and then you can kind of duplicate the hyperstack and it brings up another one. But for this purpose, it's fine that it changed. I just wanted to show you guys what it actually does. And another huge thing I didn't mention, I probably should have mentioned at the very beginning, is that you never want to save over your original file, because it's kind of similar to like flow data, where if you delete things or you manipulate things on the original file, you do not get it back. And this is super important. The nice thing, I guess, about the images is that, I guess you can always go back and get the original copy off of the Confocal, but again, you don't know if somebody accidentally erased it, and it's just way easier to absolutely make sure you never save over your files, your original file. So whenever you're manipulating it, kind of like I just did here with the original file, you never ever, I honestly never press save. I always do save as, and then I pick a PNG, or if you say, I'll just, yeah, I'm not even gonna do it because I don't even want to do it. I always just do save as, and then do a TIFF or a PNG or a JPEG. But if you want to keep it in this .oif file, and be able to kind of like manipulate it later on without changing the original file, that's where the duplicate control function kind of comes in. And I'm not 100% sure where you can do it. Okay, here it is. So image, you can also go to image and duplicate. It's right here. And so, yeah. The next thing I want to show you, I guess, is how to do a Z-stack. And so what a Z-stack does, pretty much, or we call it max projection, is that we have, say, here we have 10 slices. So there's 10 slices, but we want to kind of overlap them all into one slice, so we're able to kind of only have a 2D planar image that's representative of a 3D object almost. So you can go to image and then go to stacks and then go to Z project. And so this is, again, why you don't really need to delete any slices, because you can kind of say, oh, I want to start it at slice 1, edit at slice 10, and then you can pick the projection type. I always do max intensity because you get the most out of your data, and this is something that Dr. Bell has kind of always told me to do when I initially started. But of course, if you need to use a different projection type for some reason, then feel free to go ahead, but just press OK. And so what's going to happen is that a new image is going to pop up. So I'm going to hide this other one. And you can see that's a max projection because the Z bar is gone. And now the only thing we can see are the channels. And so the next thing I'm going to show you guys how to do is how to add a scale bar. And so the nice thing about these confocal images having the metadata is that it already converted the pixel to micron ratio for you because it has that folder attached to it, and you can kind of see it up here where it's 423.94 by that same number in microns within a 10 by 24 pixel ratio. And I can just show you really quickly how to check to see what the actual pixel to intensity ratio is. But I'll go over this in more of the advanced version later. But you can kind of see here that there's already a distance in pixels and a known distance in microns. And then so the scale is like, 2.4155 pixels per micron. But for right now, you don't really need to worry about that. We'll talk a lot more about it in another video. So to add the scale bar, you can go to Analyze, Tool, Scale Bar, and see it pops up right there. And so there's a couple things you can do with it. You can change the width of it in microns. So say I want it to be 100 microns long. And then you can also change the height of the actual bar in pixels. So 20, you can make it 20, 30, however big you really like it. And then you can also change the font size. But to be honest, you don't really ever want the text of how big the scale bar is on this image, because whenever you're end up scaling it or manipulating it to fit in your figure panel, that text is gonna get really, really fuzzy and messed up and either like elongated or shrunk. So I always just hide it. And you can also change the color of the scale bar, so you can make it black. I think everyone I've ever seen usually makes it white unless the picture they've taken is all white. I've never used the background, but you can, add kind of like a stroke around it. So I'll just keep it with white. Actually, no, I'll put it as none. And then you can change the location. So the upper right, lower left, upper left. I think most people in literature usually keep it on the bottom left or the bottom right or the bottom left. And then you can also do the choose overlay. So you can, if you don't press this overlay, it's going to actually embed the scale bar into this image, but overlay, it adds the scale bar right on top. And that's why you can kind of see that goes from green to white. And then so once you're done, you can press OK, and it will add it to each channel. If you did not already do the Z stack or the Z project, which I showed you guys earlier, it will have another pop-up bar that asks if you want to add a scale bar to each single Z slice. And then from there, you can either press yes or no. And so I want to show you guys how to separate these channels. Say you want to only do quantification, say on the lipid droplets or something like that. But it's kind of annoying having to, use the scale bar. So you can actually go to image, color, and then split the channels. And so what will happen is that it's going to pull up 3 different different windows with each one, and so you can either exit out of them or just minimize them or something like that. And then vice versa, you can go and merge the channels back together. For some reason, this is like always weird for me. It's that it wants you to pick each channel, but at the very end, what I'll show you is that you can't really change the channel, even though if you unclick composite, which the composite means that it's going to overlay all those channels together. Even if you do unclick it, for some reason, it still makes the composite. I don't know if it's just some internal glitch or something, but I can show you how to merge them back together at least. So you can see that each one was named either C1, C2, and then the red was C3. And you want to add these channels, but you can see that they already have a specific color to them. So C1 is red, but here our C1 is blue. So you kind of want to actually change where it says C3 blue to C1 for the nuclei, C2 for the green. So C2, this is green, so that's okay. And then we can change the red to C3. And so just watch real quick. I did not click composite. So I do that and it adds them all together, and you cannot change the bar. And you cannot go back either. And I can show you again where I just like, you can try and split the channels, but then it just kind of makes it this grayscale. So I'm going to delete all these because I still have this other one that I saved or duplicated. And the last two things or three things I'm going to show you how to do is zoom in. This is pretty simple. You can use the plus key or the minus key, but whenever you want to go somewhere specific on the image, you want to make sure that your cursor's over there and it will zoom in to that object. Or else, you can just, it's going to keep zooming in wherever the cursor is. And then one of the other cool things you can do is there's selection tools. So you can actually pick a certain region of interest. So this one obviously is a rectangle, but if you right click on it, there's different types: rotated, rounded, rectangle, as well as ovals, where again, you can pick the elliptical sections, polygon, which is just kind of, you make a bunch of different anchor points. But then the nice thing about this is that you can zoom in to that region of interest after you're done. Freehand selection tool is exactly what you probably think it is. You can just do whatever you want. And then there's a line function, which I use a lot for measuring fibers. There's a segmented line, which is similar to the polygon, where you kind of initially click at one point, and then you go and click again and make kind of anchors. And then there's the freehand line. And then there's the angle tool. I don't really use the angle tool too much, but you pretty much just click on, the first line and then the second line, and then it's going to give you the angle of this when you try and make a measurement, which we'll explain in another video. Either Jen or I will. Oops. But the cool thing with the selection tool is, say, I don't know, you don't really want, say, like this lipid droplet right here. You can just kind of get the rectangle tool, select it, and then just press like delete, and it will get rid of it for you. But usually that you don't really ever need to do that, unless there's like a giant, I don't know, blob that is in like the corner of your screen that is only with the background or something like that. I've never really had to do it ever. And then the last two things I want to show you is how to set the type of image. So you can go to image type. So some functions require it to be an 8-bit or 16-bit or 32-bit or RGB color. And so it just really depends what type of, like, say, plugins you're using, or if you're trying to make it turn into like a binary image, you have to use, you know, grayscale. So that's going to be, you know, 8-bit, which is, oops, no, I don't know. Usually, sometimes it, when you use 8-bit, usually it turns into grayscale, but that's okay. There's other ways to make it grayscale and then also binary, but I'll go over those in different videos. And then the last one, again, is just how to save it once you're finally done. So this is actually my original file. So I will not press save, but say I duplicate it, and I want to manipulate it later with the same type of functions as, you know, the same type of functions that belong with this type of file type. So say you insert like a PNG or a JPEG, you can't do nearly as many functions like the channel tool and the Z-stack with your images. It's a lot harder to do. So say you manipulate this duplicate and want to save it for later. This is the only time you can actually press save, and then just rename it something else like duplicate or copy or manipulated original or something like that. But then if you want to save it as, like, say, a JPEG or a TIFF file for a figure panel, then you can go to File, Save As, and then you have a bunch of different options. So, like, if you're doing a short clip, you can do a GIF, but for images, you can do TIFF, JPEG, or PNG. AVI is for movies, but I was always told that PNG kind of has the best resolution with the images, and then also, as well as the TIFF file has some certain benefits that I'm not 100% sure too, but I usually never use JPEG. JPEGs usually don't have the best resolution, especially when you scale it. So for our purposes, I usually just save as a PNG or as a TIFF. I know that the TIFF, you have more functionality when you try and upload that file back into ImageJ. You can mess around with the image a little bit better than you can with the PNG, because that's just physically like a picture. I meant so is a TIFF, but for some reason you have a little bit more functionality. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it for just the general tutorial. I hope this is not too hard for you guys. It's just a matter of kind of playing around with it. And of course, we're going to be Jen and I are going to be going over more advanced functions and how to make your picture look much cleaner without it losing kind of like the what's it called? I guess the main point of that picture, like what you're supposed to get out of it, without like biasing it. And so with that, I hope you guys find this video useful, and see you soon. Bye.